All but one of the apostles were martyred in cruel ways because they refused to deny what still resonates today. A dead man had risen, and he was the Son of God. In this video, you will learn how Christ called the apostles, how they died, and the current location of their remains. While preaching the gospel, Jesus gathered many disciples. Even though he had many friends and disciples, only 12 men were called for a special mission. Christ did not choose any Jewish authorities, but fishermen, farmers, and even a zealot and a tax collector. The mission given to them came with a warning. Remember what I told you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you also. If they obeyed my teaching, they will obey yours also. Christ warned that the world we live in is ruled by a prince who is a murderer from the beginning, Satan himself. Worldly interests are contrary to the gospel, leading many rulers to hate the preaching of the apostles. John, called the beloved disciple, stands out among the 12 as the youngest and the one who followed Christ most radically from an early age. Unlike the others, he remained faithful until the end. He accompanied Jesus in the Garden of Olives, in the Praetorium, on the Via Dolorosa, and stood at the foot of the cross with Mary and some women. There, Jesus entrusted his mother to him. "Woman, behold your son, and behold your mother." John welcomed Mary into his home until the Assumption. According to St. Jerome, in his book On Illustrious Men, John preached fervently in Ephesus, Asia Minor. He was arrested by the Roman authorities for not accepting the pagan religion of Rome, taken to the capital of the empire, and tried before Emperor Domitian and the Senate. John was condemned to be thrown into a cauldron of boiling oil in front of the crowd at the Porta Latina, a painful public execution intended to intimidate Christians, according to the book Prescription Against Heretics, written around 200 AD by the theologian Tertullian. Miraculously, he emerged unscathed, without burns, and, according to Tertullian, even purer and more vigorous. The miracle impressed those present, leading many to conversion. Frustrated, Domitian did not dare to repeat the public execution and condemned him to exile on the island of Patmos in the Aegean Sea, a Roman place of banishment for political and religious prisoners. There, John suffered forced labor in the quarries, but received the visions of the Book of Revelation. After Domitian's death, the more tolerant Emperor Nerva allowed his release. John returned to Ephesus, continued his ministry, wrote the Gospel and the 3 canonical epistles, and died of old age around 100 AD, being the only apostle who did not die a violent death. Tradition holds that his remains were in the Basilica of St. John in Ephesus, built in the 6th century by Justinian, over the original tomb of a 4th century chapel. Today, the basilica lies in ruins due to earthquakes, invasions, and Ottoman conquests. The tomb was found empty after the 6th century, and there are no confirmed remains there today. No one knows what happened to the bones. Judas Iscariot is the one whom Christ said would be better off not having been born. Together with the Pharisees, he expected a Messiah who would fight against Rome and make Israel reign over the world. Disappointed, he conspired with the Jews to arrest Jesus at an unexpected moment, preventing the crowds that followed him from stopping the unjust arrest. When the Passion began, Judas saw the wickedness, injustice, and corruption of those with whom he had conspired. He despaired, did not trust in divine mercy, and committed suicide. The apostles gathered and called Matthias to join them, forming 12 again, representing God's new and eternal covenant with humanity. Peter denied his master 3 times, and having repented, he still did not despair, and lived to also hear 3 times, "Feed my lambs." He preached in Antioch with St. Paul, an important city in the east, and brought the gospel to the center of the empire, Rome. There he established his last and most important chair. Preaching in the capital was essential for spreading the faith worldwide, given its political, economic, and social importance. However, Rome was the most hostile place for Christianity. Christians refused to worship the emperor as a god and also pagan gods, making them targets. Nero, crazy and vain, needed scapegoats. In 64 AD, after the Great Fire that devastated the city, he accused Christians of setting that fire. He began the most ferocious persecution, burned alive as torches in the imperial gardens, thrown to the beasts in the circus, crucified en masse. Peter was in the midst of the storm and knew that his time would come. Tradition has it that, fearing for his life, he fled along the Appian Way. In the darkness, he saw Christ coming with a cross. "Lord, where are you going?" Peter asked. Jesus replied, "I am going to Rome to be crucified again." Peter fell to his knees, understanding that the Master was returning to suffer in his disciples. He turned around and returned to the city to help the Christians, ready for martyrdom. Shortly thereafter, he was arrested and sentenced to crucifixion, the death of slaves and rebels. But he did not feel worthy of dying like Jesus. He asked, "Crucify me upside down." They then nailed his feet to the top, his head hanging down to the ground. As he agonized, he preached about the love of Christ, the mercy that had forgiven him, and the unbreakable rock. He died around 64 to 67 AD in Nero's circus on Vatican Hill, the site of the present-day St. Peter's Basilica. His body was buried nearby in a simple cemetery. Tradition preserved the site. In the 1940s and 1950s, excavations under the basilica found an ancient tomb with inscriptions asking for prayers for Peter, the bones of an elderly man, and continuous veneration since the 4th century. The Church proclaimed, "Peter is here." Peter's story has spanned centuries of persecution and continues to inspire millions of people to this day. That is the power of a good story, to survive its time and change all of ours. Big Picture Originals believes that telling stories with depth, attention to detail, and commitment to the truth is essential to restoring good values. That's why we've produced original documentaries, series, and content that bring real stories to life, inspiring and moving viewers. If you value analyses like this, subscribe to our channel and help us keep producing content that goes deeper than the headlines. And if you think more people should see this perspective, share this video. We also read the comments closely, so tell us, what topic should we analyze next? Andrew, brother of Peter and the first disciple called by Jesus, preached the gospel in distant lands, from Galilee to Asia Minor and around the Black Sea, until he reached Achaia in southern Greece. In Patras, a port city full of pagan temples, he converted many, including the wife and brother of the Roman governor Aegeus. Angry, Aegeus had him arrested. Before the court, Andrew proclaimed Jesus as the only Lord and refused to worship idols. Condemned to crucifixion, he asked, "I am not worthy to die on the same cross as my master. Crucify me on this X-shaped one." The executioners tied him with ropes around his wrists and ankles to the 4 slanted arms, raising the wood in the public square. For 2 whole days he remained suspended, alive, preaching to the crowd. He exhorted them to conversion and spoke of Christ's mercy. According to the Acts of Andrew and the book On the 12 Apostles by Hippolytus of Rome, On the third day, a divine light enveloped Andrew, and he gave up his spirit, impressing the pagans and comforting the Christians. Tradition recounts that after the martyrdom of St. James in Jerusalem, his disciples miraculously transported his body by sea to present-day Spain, where he had preached at the beginning of his apostolate, burying him in an ancient Christian cemetery. The tomb was rediscovered around 814, guided by a star seen by a hermit according to local legend, giving rise to the city of Santiago de Compostela and the Camino de Santiago. The site remains one of the largest centers of Christian pilgrimage in the world. James the Less, cousin of Jesus, was the first bishop of Jerusalem, where he ruled the church for about 18 years. A man of great piety, constant prayer, and austere life, he presided over the Council of Jerusalem and wrote the Epistle of James. Around 62 AD, during the interval between Roman procurators, the high priest Annas II took advantage of the lack of Roman authority to condemn him in the Sanhedrin for violating the law because of his belief in Christ. He was thrown from the pinnacle of the temple, about 30 meters high. He survived the fall, knelt down, and prayed for his attackers. "Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Still alive, he was stoned to death. His head was crushed. Flavius Josephus reported in the book Jewish Antiquities that the stoning ordered by Annas II was illegal according to Jewish law, offending even righteous Pharisees who removed Annas from the office of high priest. His remains were buried on the Mount of Olives, overlooking Jerusalem. Emperor Justinian II transferred the relics to Constantinople, and later they were taken to the Basilica of the Holy 12 Apostles in Rome, where they are venerated alongside those of St. Philip to this day. Philip and Bartholomew, the latter also being like the man without guile whom Jesus saw under the fig tree, traveled and preached together throughout various regions after the resurrection. There, according to tradition, they converted many, including the wife of the Roman proconsul and members of the local elite, performing miracles and challenging pagan cults. The proconsul, enraged, arrested the two, along with Philip's sister, Mariamne. Condemned for rejecting the Roman gods, Philip was crucified upside down around 80 AD. He preached even while on the cross for hours, exhorting conversion until he expired. Bartholomew, however, escaped immediate martyrdom at that place. Ancient tradition reports that divine intervention saved him along with Mariamne, and he continued preaching in other places. Bartholomew converted King Polemius, which angered the pagan princes and priests. Arrested and tortured, Bartholomew was flayed alive. His skin was torn off with knives, and then he was beheaded, a brutal torture that made him the patron saint of tanners and leather workers. Philip's original tomb was in Turkey, in Hierapolis, now Pamukkale, but his remains were taken to Rome in the 6th century. They rest in the Basilica of the Holy 12 Apostles. The relics of Bartholomew rest in the Basilica of St. Bartholomew on Tiber Island in Rome. His remains were taken from Armenia to Sicily, then to Benevento, and then to Rome in the 10th century. Simon the Zealot and Jude Thaddius, two of the 12 apostles, preached together after the resurrection. Simon first evangelized among the Jews and then in Mesopotamia. Jude, cousin of Jesus and brother of St. James the Less, preached in Judea, Samaria, and Edessa, where, according to tradition, he healed King Abgar. Their paths crossed in Persia, present-day Iran, where they continued to convert many, including nobles and common people, challenging pagan and Zoroastrian cults. Pagan priests and local authorities, enraged, incited a mob. Arrested and interrogated, the two refused to worship idols and proclaimed Christ as the only Lord. Judas Thaddius was beaten to death with clubs and axes, suffering blows that made him the patron saint of desperate causes as he kept the faith without despair. Simon was sawn in half. Tradition states that the bodies of the two apostles were transferred to Rome during the reign of Emperor Constantine in the 4th century. They rest together in St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, under the altar of St. Joseph, near the altar of the Blessed Sacrament. There are fragments in other churches, such as a bone from Judas's arm in San Salvatore in Lauro, Rome, but the main one is in St. Peter's Basilica. Matthew, the tax collector from Capernaum, was called by Jesus with a simple "Follow me," and he left everything to follow Christ. Author of the first gospel, written for Christians of Jewish origin, he initially preached in Palestine and then in distant lands, especially Ethiopia, according to the 4th century book Ecclesiastical History. Matthew converted many in Ethiopia, including the young noblewoman Iphigenia and members of the royal court. King Thaddius wanted to force Iphigenia to marry him, but she had taken a vow of virginity, according to the book The Golden Legend, written in the 13th century. Matthew publicly rebuked the king for trying to marry a woman consecrated to God, infuriating the monarch. Thaddius ordered the apostles' death during the celebration of Mass. An assassin stabbed Matthew with a sword while he was celebrating, killing him on the spot. This occurred around 60 to 70 AD. Tradition has it that his body was transferred to Italy. Today, his relics are believed to rest in the crypt of St. Matthew's Cathedral in Salerno, Italy, under the main altar in an ancient sarcophagus. The cathedral, built in the 11th century, celebrates him as the patron saint of the city, with annual processions on September 21st. Thomas, the apostle known for his famous doubt after the resurrection, but who soon proclaimed, "My Lord and my God," preached the gospel in distant lands after Pentecost. Tradition takes him first to Persia, present-day Iran, and then to India, arriving on the Malabar coast around 52 AD. There, he founded ancient Christian communities, the famous Syro-Malabar and Malankara communities, which still exist today. He evangelized Brahmins, local kings, and ordinary people, converting many and building 7 early churches in Kerala. He then traveled eastward, arriving in Mylapore. There, while praying, he was attacked by Brahmins who were indignant at his conversions. Pierced by spears, he died a martyr around 72 AD, the apostle who doubted but testified with his life. The original tomb is under the Basilica of St. Thomas in Mylapore, India, rebuilt by the Portuguese in the 16th century. Some smaller fragments of his remains remain there, but most of his relics are in the Basilica of St. Thomas the Apostle in the city of Ortona, Italy, with some fragments having been taken to Rome. These inspiring stories have the power to guide lives and enlighten those who seek good examples. If you're watching on YouTube, this is an exclusive offer you won't find on our website. Right now, you can unlock Big Picture Originals exclusive content with 30% off our annual plan for just $6.99 per month. Start with God Complex, a groundbreaking investigation into the censorship machine reshaping Western democracies. Featuring in-depth contributions from voices like Mike Benz and Peter Schweizer, this documentary exposes how power, technology, and ideology collide to control what you're allowed to see, say, and think. You'll also get access to From the River to the Sea, the most in-depth documentary on the root causes of the Middle East conflict, cutting through decades of distortion and media simplifications to explain what's really at stake. Plus, a full library of original investigations and series, including History of Communism, End of Beauty, Great Minorities, Fall of Argentina, and more. Click the link or scan the QR code to unlock 30% off for a limited time. Big stories, small price.